We look at the ocean and see a mirror of the sky, a vast, blue expanse that symbolizes tranquility and the source of all life. We build our greatest cities on its shores, trust its rhythms, and find peace in the sound of its tides. But the ocean is not our friend. It is an indifferent, ancient abyss, 5 miles deep in places, covering 70% of a planet that is essentially a ball of molten rock wrapped in a thin, fragile crust. We have forgotten that the sea is not just a body of water. It is a weapon of mass displacement, waiting for a catalyst to turn the entire coastline of the world into a graveyard. While we fear the fire of volcanoes or the shaking of the earth, the most devastating threat to our species comes from above, a cosmic projectile that does not aim for the land, but for the water. A meteorite hitting the ocean is not a splash, it is a clinical execution of the biological world. It is the moment when the kinetic energy of the heavens meets the fluid mass of the deep. Today, we examine the hydrodynamics of the apocalypse and the terrifying reality of the meteorite-induced tsunami. This is the death of the coast. Welcome to Discovered. To understand the danger, we must first look at the physics of the impact. Imagine a rock, only 200 meters wide, a mere speck in the scale of the solar system. It enters our atmosphere at 20 kilometers per second, 70 times faster than a commercial jet. As it screams through the air, friction turns it into a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun. When this projectile strikes the ocean, it does not sink. At those speeds, the water acts like a solid block of concrete. The meteorite slams into the surface, and in a microsecond, its kinetic energy is converted into a multi-megaton thermal explosion. The science behind this is called impact hydrodynamics, and it is a study in chaos. The meteorite creates what is known as a transient crater in the ocean floor, a void miles wide where the water has been instantaneously vaporized and pushed aside. Millions of tons of seawater are launched into the stratosphere, carrying salt and debris that will eventually poison the very air we breathe. But the true horror is the collapse. As the transient crater fails, the surrounding ocean rushes back in to fill the vacuum with a force that defies human comprehension. This collision of water creates the rim wave, a mountain of brine that can reach heights of hundreds of meters. This is the birth of the super-tsunami. Unlike a typical earthquake-generated tsunami, which moves like a subtle swell in the deep ocean, a meteorite impact generates a wave with a much shorter wavelength and a much higher frequency of energy. It is a wall of water moving at 500 miles per hour, carrying the momentum of a falling mountain. In the open sea, you might not even see it coming, but as it approaches the shallow water of the continental shelf, the laws of physics dictate its transformation. The wave shoals, it slows down and grows taller, sucking the water away from the beaches as it prepares for the strike. If you are standing on the shore and see the ocean receding, exposing the shipwrecks and the dark mud of the seabed, you are already dead. You are looking at the indrawn breath of a monster. When the wave hits, it does not look like the curling rollers of a surfing magazine. It looks like a rising, churning wall of black sludge, filled with the debris of everything it has already destroyed. A meteorite impact in the Atlantic or the Pacific would send waves into every coastal city on the continent. We are talking about inundation depths of 300 meters. Imagine the skyscrapers of New York, London, or Tokyo being struck by a wall of water that reaches their upper floors. The water would not just flood the buildings. It would grind them into dust. The grinder effect is the most lethal aspect of a tsunami. The water is filled with cars, trees, glass, and the remains of other structures, turning the flood into a liquid sandpaper that erases everything in its path. The psychological gallows of a tsunami is the realization of helplessness. There is no high ground high enough. There is no shelter strong enough. In 2004 and 2011, we saw the devastation of minor tsunami events that killed hundreds of thousands and triggered nuclear meltdowns. But those were ripples compared to a cosmic impact. A meteorite the size of the dinosaur killer, the Chicxulub rock, created waves 300 meters high that traveled 300 kilometers inland. It turned the Gulf of Mexico into a boiling cauldron and erased 90% of life on the planet. We are currently living in the normalcy bias, the belief that because it hasn't happened in our lifetime, it cannot happen today. But the scars on the Earth's diary tell a different story. Scientists have identified over 150 confirmed impact craters on Earth, and many of the largest are hidden beneath the waves. In 1981, evidence of a massive impact was found in the Bellingshausen Sea. The resulting tsunamis struck Antarctica and South America within hours, changing the coastline forever. In the year 1400, a suspected impact off the coast of New Zealand created waves so large they are still whispered about in Maori oral history as the coming of the Great Water. These are not myths. They are forensic evidence of a planet that is under constant, if infrequent, bombardment. The danger does not end when the water recedes. The aftermath of a super-tsunami is a landscape of biological and economic ruin. The salt contamination of the soil would render the coastal plains where most of the world's food is grown sterile for decades. The destruction of ports and shipping infrastructure would trigger a total collapse of the global supply chain, leading to a multi-year famine that would kill more people than the initial wave. Furthermore, the massive injection of vaporized seawater into the atmosphere would devastate the ozone layer. The salt reaches the stratosphere, where the chlorine atoms act as a catalyst to shred the very shield that protects us from solar radiation. We would be left in a world that is flooded, starving, and being sterilized by the sun. Then, there is the impact winter. The dust and debris kicked up by the impact would stay in the atmosphere for years, blocking out the sun and dropping global temperatures by 15 degrees. We would see snow in the tropics and the death of the oceans as the phytoplankton, deprived of light, stopped producing oxygen. We are a species that is utterly dependent on a stable, predictable ocean. When that ocean is turned into a weapon by a cosmic visitor, the contract of our survival is cancelled. We must look at the psychological ruin of the survivors. To witness the total erasure of your world in a matter of minutes, to see your city, your family, and your history dissolved into a churn of salt and debris, a trauma that the human mind cannot process. The survivors of such an event would inhabit a ghost coast, a world where the sea is no longer a place of beauty, but a source of permanent, existential dread. Every tide would be a reminder of the power that once took everything away. We would become a species that fears the horizon. Some suggest that our technology could protect us, that we could detect and deflect an incoming meteorite before it hits the water. But our detection systems are far from perfect. We often discover city-killer asteroids only after they have already passed the Earth. We are currently blind to many of the threats that lurk in the darkness of the solar system. We are like children playing on a beach, unaware of the mountain of rock that is screaming toward the water. The ocean is a tomb waiting to be filled. It has hosted these interstellar parties before, and every time, the bill has been paid in extinction. The Chicxulub impact was the first recorded super-tsunami in the Earth's diary, and it will not be the last. The badass grandma of the solar system, as some jokingly call the Earth, is a planet of scars. Those scars are the evidence of violent rebirths, of moments when the ocean was reset by fire from the sky. We are merely the current inhabitants of a world that has been erased and rewritten dozens of times. The discovery of underwater craters like the Mahuika or the Bellingshausen site is a warning. It is a reminder that the floor is thinner than you think, and the water is deeper than you can imagine. We live on the edge of an abyss, and the abyss is governed by the cold, clinical laws of hydrodynamics. The sea does not care about your mojitos or your sunsets. It cares about momentum, mass, and the transfer of kinetic energy. It is a planetary scale hydraulic press, and we are the material in its path. Geology operates on a scale of millions of years, but a tsunami operates on a scale of minutes. In the time it took you to watch this report, a wave from a mid-ocean impact could have already traveled 100 miles. The ocean is quiet now, but it is a silence that hides a terrifying potential. The heat is rising, the space rocks are moving, and the water is waiting. Sleep well, knowing that the foundation of your world is a fluid mass that can be turned against you in a microsecond. Cherish the shore, but do not trust it. Because the stars are watching, the ocean is deep, and the end is coming from the sky and rising from the sea. If you are prepared to face the truths that the world chooses to ignore, stay with us. There are many more scientific anomalies and geological horrors waiting to be unburied. We will continue to explore the truths that have been hidden in the depths of our planet and the shadows of the cosmos. Subscribe to Discovered and activate the notification bell. In a world of comfortable lies and shallow dreams, we provide the cold, clinical evidence of reality. Do not miss our next report, where we will examine the next impossible scenario that threatens the very definition of humanity. See you in the next investigation. Remember, the tide is coming in, and the end is closer than the horizon.